Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. So, I'm feeling a little bit better today. If you watch me on a regular basis, you know I've been a little bit ill. But yeah, I'm feeling better. So, hope you're all well also. And what we're going to talk about in this video, let's see, have I got a photo? Um, is Madeleine McCann. This case of poor little Madeleine, who I think she was only 4, wasn't wasn't she, when she went missing in Pride where her and her mum, dad, and her siblings, twins, Sean and Amelie, who were only 2 at the time, they were all on holiday in Portugal in Pride. I need to put a picture up on there. Let me just find one. It's been a little while since I've done a video about her, so I haven't got photo loaded up. Now, this case, gosh, 19 years this case has been talked about. Little Madeleine, she is probably the most famous or infamous, or I don't know what the right word is to describe it, the most high profile missing child case ever. you know there's not many people in this world, in this crazy world, don't know about the case of Madeleine McCann. I'm going to need to download a photo of her. And of course, what has made it infamous, because children missing every day, don't they, very sadly, all over the world. Children go missing, and sometimes they're never found. Like Madeleine, nobody knows for certain. Well, somebody knows what happened to Madeleine, of course, the person who took her or responsible for whatever happened to her. Let me see let's have this photo. You know, some people think the family knows, or the mum and dad know what happened to Madeleine. You can't help but think that sometimes, but there is no evidence, and they have never been charged with Madeleine's disappearance, have they? So, sorry, I'm just uploading a photo. Every year there is a vigil for Madeleine. Every year that Madeleine's been missing, around this time, because it's round about this date that she went missing, a vigil is held. Now, for the last couple of years, the McCanns have not been able to go to the vigil because, of course, they were being stalked, weren't they, by the fake Madeleine, Julia Wendelt. I'm not going to put a picture of her up because she just likes attention. She claimed she was, there's been quite a lot of fake Madeleines, to be honest. And Julia Wendelt really did make, whatever you think of Jerry and Kate McCann, she did make their lives a misery. She also stalked their remaining children, Sean and Amelie, the twins, who, as I say, were 2 when this all happened. So they'll be 21 now. She stalked them, she messaged them. Anyway, so for the last couple of years, no one from, the direct family has gone to the vigil, more or less for fear of her turning up or some other Fruit Loop. Anyway, they've all gone this year. So I'm going to put a picture up of the whole family. So there's been photos taken. So this is the first year that the whole family have gone. In other words, Jerry, Kate, the parents, and also the twins, who are now adults. And they've all gone to the vigil this year. Very strangely, all in the same jackets. Sean's is brown. They've all got very similar, if not identical, jackets on. Just strange. I don't know. I just think. Anyway, I'm not here to comment about their jackets, but so yeah, they all went to the vigil. So that's the first year that they've all gone. They seem unified as a family. Don't know what Sean and Amelie, I expect over the years there's been discussions, because the main sort of thing that everybody, gets a bit angry with the McCanns about is that they left 3 young children under the age of 5. We had Madeleine, who was she 3 or 4, and Sean and Amelie, who were only 2, all left in the apartment while they went down to have a jolly old time with all their mates, and they just took it in turns to go up to the apartment, apparently, and just check on the children. Now, I went there. I've been to this location on location and asked around, and you would never leave your children there. The McCanns described it as though just like being in your garden, and the kids being in the house, but that would be if you lived in Buckingham Palace or somewhere like that, because there's no way I would have left my child in that apartment while I went off with my mates. So I just still don't understand why they didn't take the children out with them. They were in Portugal. Portugal is child friendly. It's just selfish, I think, to leave them in the apartment. 3 children under the age of 5. And that apartment, quite often when you see video footage of that complex, the apartment is not part of the complex. They make it look as if it is, but it isn't. You have to go out of the complex onto the road, up the road, round the corner, into the apartment building. It is not connected to the tappers bar. It's not all part of the same complex. It's completely separate. The pool area and the tappers bar is surrounded by a wall. So as I say, you have to actually step out into the street to walk up the street, up to the top of the road, you turn left, and then you have to go into the apartments. So it's not all part of the same complex at all. So that's another reason why you would never leave your child there. So, there's always a possibility, I suppose, that Madeleine came out of the apartment, went onto the road, and was snatched off the road. They're lucky she didn't get run over. When you go there and you see it, you realise even more how ridiculous it is. And also talking to the locals, the locals in that area, they firmly put the blame on the McCanns. So that's the way it is. But I wasn't there that night. Nobody knows except the McCanns if they're telling the truth or not. Or did some, complete stranger come in and abduct Madeleine? It just, don't know. And anyway, she's never been found. Her body's never been found. There's no proof that she's not still alive. The McCanns will say they'll always be hopeful that maybe she's still alive. Doesn't seem very likely after 19 years, does it? But, it's not beyond the realms of possibility, I suppose. But what I've noticed that happens every year around this time, there comes, some revelation that some news is going to break. Anyway, this year, the news is that Christian B., who, of course, is the supposed suspect or patsy, depending on which which way you look at it. I need to actually download a picture of him as well. So he was Christian B was like a van life type person, who, seems like he's not a very nice person, that's for sure. He's been in prison for RAP, but of an elderly woman, not a child. You know, not that means that he wouldn't have a child, because predators, they just attack vulnerable people, don't they? Doesn't really matter as long as someone's vulnerable. Some offenders have a type, other offenders don't. They literally just anyone who's vulnerable will do. And of course, he may be one of them. Let me just download his photo. He may be one of those predators where it doesn't matter who it is, as long as it's somebody that he can have power over. This can often happen with cases of predators, old, young, it doesn't matter, as long as it's somebody easy to do. So even though he, I can't find that picture that I've just downloaded, even though he, seems unlikely to me that it was him, just because, I don't know, he doesn't have as far as I know, he doesn't have a history of abusing children. But anyway, that's him. He's been released now from prison. He was in prison. There was a lot of talk over in Germany that, oh yes, he's definitely, the thing is, if this guy is innocent, it's a shame what's happened to him. I know he's not a nice person, but it's not good to accuse anyone of anything if they're not guilty. So he insists he's not guilty, of course. And the German police, despite the fact they keep saying, oh, he's definitely guilty, they've not come up with any charges. They're just talking about it all the time. So for him, as I say, whatever you think of him, if they think he's guilty, then charge him. Don't keep saying he's guilty and, he's getting accused of it. But is he guilty? If he's guilty, charge him. Anyway, that's how I look at it. Good morning, Darren. Good morning. So yeah, this case, it's like, you don't think it'll ever be solved. Will it ever be solved? It'll take somebody to talk, won't it? So the police, there's still a residual police operation in Britain, Operation Grange, isn't it? And every year they come up for funding. So that's strange as well, because just as they need funding, suddenly they're on the verge of a breakthrough, So now what's being said at the moment, this year's story is that they would like to extradite Christian B and prosecute him at the Old Bailey, because they think they've got enough evidence to convict him. But oh shucks, they cannot do that probably, because now that because of Brexit, another Brexit benefit, Germany only extradites as suspects in the European Union. And of course, Britain's not part of the European Union anymore. So it's unlikely that they'll be able to extradite him. Oh, come on. It's like Jack and Ori sometimes, this, isn't it? It's like, oh yeah, we think we've got enough evidence to prosecute who we think abducted and murdered Madeleine McCann. But oh, we can't do it because of Brexit. They think the public are thick, don't they? They really do. There is a definite assumption that the public are thick. Because if there is enough evidence to convict Christian B, why is he not? Why would he have to go to Britain to be prosecuted? Why can't Germany prosecute him? It's ridiculous, in my opinion. Anyway, I just wanted to read you this article. I mean, it's important to keep Madeleine's name out there, of course. Could there be a miracle one day and the mystery of Madeleine is solved? It's sometimes it seems unfair that so much concentration is given on Madeleine's case when there are so many other missing children out there that don't get the same attention. Anyway, so let's read this article. So, Madeleine McCann's parents and siblings come together to mark the 19th anniversary of her disappearance. Now, it must be quite chilling for the twins, really. I mean, the McCanns, really, they're lucky they didn't lose all their children that night. Literally. You leave 3 children under the age of 5 alone in an apartment in a foreign country while you're having a jolly up with your mates. 3 little children could have lost all of them. So the parents of Madeleine McCann on Sunday joined a prayer vigil to mark the poignant 19th anniversary of her daughter's disappearance. As they vowed, the search goes on to find her, to achieve some justice, to make the world that bit safer. Kate and Jerry, accompanied by the twins, were warmly welcomed by supporters and well-wishers for the informal outdoor gathering in their home village of Rothley, Leicestershire. It's the first time that the couple have been pictured in public with both Sean and Amelie, now aged 21. At moments, the couple looked pained as prayers were said for Maddie, who vanished during a family holiday to Praia da Luz, Portugal in May 2007. She had been left sleeping alone with her younger twin siblings while her parents were dining with friends in a nearby tapas restaurant. Renowned heart doctor Jerry, 57, and former GP turned medical worker Kate, 58, cling on to a glimmer of hope that their daughter, who would now be aged 22, nearly 23, could still be alive. Neither Kate nor Jerry, both wearing dark casual trousers with puffer jackets and trainers, addressed the 50-strong crowd. But Sean, a talented swimmer, he's a talented. I mean, I think they've done. The parents have done well in bringing these children up, because it can't be easy, being the sibling of the most famous missing person case in the world. But they seem to have brought them up to be grounded adults who are being productive, because Sean is a talented swimmer who hopes to represent Great Britain in the 2028 Olympics, and Amelie is a university student. They lit candles in memory of their sister at the War Memorial at Cross Green. Yeah, Kate and Jerry. I'm sort of out of words really for this case. Sean's very tall, isn't he? Look how tall he is. Goodness me. There's Sean and Amelie. So it's the first time the couple have been pictured in public with both of them. Yeah, there's Madeleine, frozen in time, All the photos we have of Madeleine, of course. We've got no new photos of her since she disappeared. That was her then. Poor little mite. I mean, what happens to her? I don't know. Kate's uncle, Brian Kennedy, a retired school head teacher, read a poem, The Beacon, by Simon Armitage, which had previously been written for the McCanns by the now poet laureate. The Reverend Rob Gladstone, vicar of Rothley Parish Church, told the crowd, "We gather today to pray for Madeleine and other missing children, to encourage one another, and especially Jerry and Kate, to keep up our hope and pray for a renewal of strength even after 19 years." It's a long time, isn't it? Villager Michelle Camilleri joined supporters reading mantras, including "Never give up, don't forget about me," and "Still missing, still missed." And she later said, "I really feel for the family. They still have no closure or peace after all these years." And she added, "There is a lot of support from them here." After the brief 20-minute service, Kate was seen smiling as she hugged and chatted to locals. Now, Kate especially is a very devout Catholic. You remember they went to see the Pope? I mean, this is what I think sort of, they went all over the world. After Madeleine went missing, what will always get me is Madeleine went missing. They stayed in the area, which I suppose is fair enough because they were hoping that she would be found. But they still put their other kids, in the kids' club. You wouldn't let them out of your sight. You've lost one child. You're not going to put your other two children back in the kids' club, where that might have been where Madeleine was targeted from, for all they knew, while they went off jogging. Or travelling around the world, Jerry was on Oprah, they went to see the Pope, they went here, they went there. That just didn't sit right with people, doesn't sit right with me. So I feel that if you have 3 children and one of them gets abducted, the other 2 children you're not going to leave in a nursery. You would stick to them like glue, wouldn't you? Anyway, they carried on with their normal routine. They got a lot, their sang-froid was like, just how could you just do your jogs every day? And I mean, straight away, eventually you've got to go back to normal life. You do have to when, that's just sadly, you can't stay frozen in time forever. But, not immediately. So that didn't sit well with people, did it? And then, of course, eventually they were made arguidos or suspects. And that's when, everything really sort of, the shit hit the fan and they went back to the UK. And as I say, if you speak to any of the locals in Proud de Luz, I spoke to someone who actually was working there at the time. In fact, I spoke to 2 people who were working at the complex at the time. And as far as the locals are concerned, it's the McCanns who know exactly what happened to Madeleine. I'm not saying that they're right. I'm just telling you what they said. Anyway, I don't know. But yeah, their behaviour was odd, wasn't it? And then, of course, there was this big GoFundMe type campaign and they made lots of money out of this. And the thing is, the McCanns, they courted attention. So, I don't know if now they want all the media attention to die down. But at the time when it happened, they wanted the attention. They were taking donations and they set up their, was it No Stone Unturned website, etc. They were looking for attention. It was only when they got made arguidos and the attention turned negative towards them that then suddenly they didn't want attention. But you can't turn off things like that, you know. And of course, immediately after the incident happened, one of their mates was on the phone to Martin Frizzell, Good Morning Britain or whatever, and it was all over. You know, it was really, really odd. It's a very odd case, all of it, whichever way you look at it. So, you know, I think now 19 years later, it's still an odd case. It's still mystery. So after the brief 20-minute service, Kate was seen smiling as she hugged and chatted to locals and the family of four, all wearing matching jackets. They even comment about that in this article. You know, just thinking about my son, he'd rather be, no way he'd want to wear the same jacket as me. Anyway, then they later walked off to their nearby home. In a new post on social media, Kate and Jerry wrote, 19 years. The search goes on to find our Madeleine, to achieve some justice, to make the world that bit safer. And they added, we remain very grateful for all our support from friends and family, people we know and those we don't, and from the police and authorities for their continued determination and effort. Thank you. For Madeleine, who we love and miss every day, we will never give up. Kate, Jerry and family. So there's Amelie, a very attractive girl. Yeah, you know, she seems very close with Kate. She's linking Kate. It did come out at the Julia Wendelt trial that I think Amelie worries about Kate's, you know, fragility, if you like, because Kate seems to feel it more. You know, Jerry's Jerry, isn't he? He's like, I mean, he's a surgeon, you know, he's got perhaps, he's made of sterner stuff. I don't know. Um, Kate seems to be the one that is perhaps the more vulnerable. And of course, Julia Wendelt, she went for Kate for that reason, didn't she? Calling her mom and all this kind of thing. But she didn't call Jerry dad, you know. She knew Jerry was not as vulnerable, if you like, I think. Anyway, and there's Sean. He doesn't look so enmeshed in the family. Just body language. Just when I was doing the thumbnail for this video, you know, I had to sort of separate him and put him closer because he stood away. But you know, boys are different, aren't they? So, I mean, I would say from that photo that Amelie and Kate are close. So, you know, I wonder what's happened over the years, what the discussion's been, because those twins must, you know, it must have crossed their mind that if it was an abduction, you know, in the end it was Madeleine who was taken, but it could have been either of them or even all three of them. So the vigil comes 6 months after a Polish woman was given a jail sentence for harassing the McCanns. Julia Wendelt, who repeatedly claimed to be Madeleine, was found guilty of harassing the family, but cleared of a more serious charge of stalking in November last year. And we covered that, didn't we, that trial? I think hasn't she been deported back to where she comes from? Is it Poland and can't remember, an Eastern European country, and she's not allowed to come back. I don't think she's allowed to come back to the UK. Hey Lily, good morning. So Julie, that's why they've all gone to this vigil this year, because they don't have to worry about Fruit Loop Julia turning up. So the vicar, in addressing the crowd, had mentioned that Kate and Jerry had been tormented by someone pretending to be Madeleine and had been dragged through the courts. I've got to say, I agree with that. I did feel sorry for the McCanns as far as Julie was concerned. I think she did torture them. Because whatever's happened to Madeleine, even if you think that they know what's happened to Madeleine, it's still a lot to live with. If there was an accident and they covered it up, it's still a lot to, whatever happened to Madeleine, it's a lot for the parents to live with, unless you believe that they deliberately murdered her, which I don't believe that for a minute, to be honest. But who knows? Parents do murder their children, sadly, as we've seen. So Wendelt, 24, and her supporter Karen Spragg. I mean, she's the one who should have known better. At her age, for God's sake, was acquitted of all charges, and they were accused of mounting a campaign of harassment against the family, which in Wendelt's case lasted for more than 2 years. Wendelt of Lubin, Poland, was sentenced to 6 months at Leicester Crown Court, but she was freed to be deported to her native country, having already served the term and being in custody since February 2025. So, yeah, and it really, I mean, the objective was to, get her out the way, the McCanns, really, wasn't it? So it was successful. So Kate, Jerry, Amelie, and Maddie's great aunt Janet Kennedy had all given prosecution evidence in court but were shielded from public view. So yeah, there was a blue curtain put up so they didn't have to, I mean, I'm not saying I disagree with that. I think it's probably a good thing. But other people don't get afforded that privilege, do they? Sometimes RAPE victims have to sit and face their accusers in court. They don't get a blue curtain to hide behind, do they? They've always had special treatment. The family had been smuggled in and out of the court premises, away from the packed media and interested members of the public. They were all, as saying, other victims don't get that privilege. After the conviction, the McCanns said in a statement that despite the guilty verdict, they take no pleasure in the result. Yeah, and they said they didn't want to go through with the court process, but a decision to prosecute was made by the Crown Prosecution Service based on the evidence gathered by the police. So here's the vigil. So there's quite a few people there. Every year now it'll happen. Now Julia's out of the way unless another Fruit Loop pops up. There, of course, is Julia. It was strikingly obvious to me that she looks nothing like the McCanns or Madeleine. But anyway, there you go. So they said, we hope Miss Wendell will receive the appropriate care and support she needs, and any vulnerability will not be exploited by others. Because, that was the other thing that happened with Julia. Julia is vulnerable because she has got mental health issues. And a lot of podcasters, particularly YouTubers, they exploited her because, they probably knew 100% she's not Madeleine McCann. But they would have her on for interviews. It's a shame. It is a shame. If anyone has new evidence relating to Madeleine's disappearance, please pass it on to the police. And Kate and Jerry had shunned their daughter's anniversary vigil in 2024 on advice from police during their alarming stalking and harassment ordeal. Wendelt had bizarrely turned up at the event and demanded to see the couple to hand deliver a letter, and she became distressed to learn they were absent. So Maddie's disappearance remains one of the world's biggest ever missing person inquiries, and her abductor has so far evaded justice. British police searching for Maddie have been given new funding. Every year they get new funding. It's a bit, I should imagine, for other people with missing children who the police aren't even looking for anymore. Must be a bit galling, really. Anyway, the welcome boost for Kate and Jerry comes after they said they were hoping for positive news and the breakthrough we long for this year. So apparently the government has approved a fresh request from Scotland Yard for a cash boost this financial year to keep their 15-year-old investigation codenamed Operation Grange going. And it has so far cost the taxpayer around £13.5 million. Anyway, a Home Office spokesperson told the Daily Mail ministers have approved a request from the Metropolitan Police Service to provide up to £86,000. I mean, it's not that much money, that, in the scale of things, but when you add it on to all the other money from the other years. The MP's request was considered, as usual, in line with our special grant process, which is approved on an annual basis. But the sum granted has been cut and is £22,000 less than the previous year under Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood. So this is the new Home Secretary, isn't it, in the UK? Shabana, she's very strict on everything. She's anyway, so she's cut it by 22,000. And you know what? It's a shame. All children deserve to be looked for. Of course, the thing is, we look at these photos of Madeleine. If by some miracle Madeleine is still alive, she won't look anything like that, will she? So, because she's 23 now, if by some miracle she is still alive. But we're always looking at these pictures of her as a little girl. This was an image that was put out of how she might look. I hate those things. I don't think they do any good. There's Christian. Only he knows, I suppose. Only he knows the truth. Did he do something to Madeleine? Is it possible? Let me know, of course, what you think. So German police are convinced she is dead and have been intent on charging the prime suspect, convicted rapist Kristen Bruckner, with her kidnap and no-body murder, whereas Scotland Yard are still treating her case as a missing persons inquiry. The German police, they were there, weren't they, going, oh yeah, we're convinced it's Christian. Oh, well, prosecute him then. Prosecute him. Why have you got to wait? I don't see why they're even talking about the British police extraditing him and trying him at the Old Bailey, and they've got enough evidence. Well, clearly there isn't enough evidence, or the German police would have prosecuted him. At New Year, Kate and Jerry sent best wishes and thanked the police and public for their continued support. They added, May 2026 bring us the breakthrough we long for. We wanted to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has supported us in whatever way and for continuing to hope for more positive news of Madeleine. Okay, so I'm going to go to a different. Now I just want to read you what it's saying here about, the reason why it's unlikely that Christian. Well, they're saying the reason that it's unlikely that Christian will be. Where's the picture gone? Oh, there it is. The reason, apparently, it's unlikely he'll be extradited is because of Brexit. So the Met Police is reportedly trying to bring the suspect in the McCann case the Madeleine McCann case to the UK for trial, but a Brexit-related rule may put a stop to it. The force would like to have Bruckner stand trial at the Old Bailey and want to get the process started in time for the 20th anniversary of Madeleine's disappearance next year. So do you think it'll ever happen? So he was living a mile away from the Praia da Luz hotel at the time. So one of the people I spoke to when I was in Portugal, they knew him. They said there's no way it was him, but anyway. They said he was like a van lifer, but they knew him personally, but I don't know. Could have been that person I was talking to as the abductor. Thing is, until this case is solved, we haven't got a clue, really, have we? So the Telegraph says that while serving a prison sentence in Germany for RAPE, Bruckner was named by British police as the main suspect. However, no charges were laid on it. I just don't see how you can, like, you know, how can you just turn around and say, oh, they're the main suspect, but no charges? So, of course, he denies involvement. And in 2021, he wrote letters from his prison cell to the German newspaper Bild, calling the investigation into him an unbelievable scandal. But, you know, I suppose he will say that. He's not going to say, yeah, I did it, is he? Freedom of expression is not a basic right so that everyone can say and write what they want, he said. Freedom of expression does not protect the majority. It protects the minority. It does not protect the most logical, most convincing, or most popular views, but rather the outsider position. And the German constitution prevents the extradition of its citizens to non-EU countries, which could lead Berlin to reject the request. Before Brexit, Bruckner could have been extradited without issue. Oh, do you know, Brexit was a total disaster, wasn't it? Just in all. Somebody give me a Brexit benefit. Does anybody know a benefit of Brexit? What a load of crap. So Madeleine's parents have held out hope of their daughter being found alive for many years. Even though the possibility may be slim, we have still not given up hope that Madeleine is still alive and we will be reunited with her. They wrote on Facebook in 2022 at the time Bruckner was arrested. So, you know, remember they went back to Praia da Luz, they searched at the dam there, didn't they, a couple of years ago? There was a lot of expectation. There was a lot of expectation that something would be found, but nothing was found. This is the case that just keeps on and on and on. I don't think we'll ever know. I know I'm wrong. I am. It would be great if next year Christian Bruckner is brought to trial and proper evidence is, you know, brought forward. He's found. If he is guilty, I mean, that would be great. You know, some resolution, maybe confession. I just don't know about you, but I can't see it happening. I've just seen a pattern in this every May, every time to the anniversary of Madeleine going missing. Something. Last year there were searches being made. You know, this year now it's British police hoping to extradite him and they're going to prosecute him at the Old Bailey. No, it's just like, why about it as it? You know, we don't have to be like British extradite and may at the Old Bailey. But oh, hang on a minute, they can't because of Brexit. You know, it just, anyone might think it's deliberate just to gaslight the public. I'm not saying that. I wouldn't say that. I'm just saying somebody might think that, might they? Because it always comes up. You know, it's always around the anniversary something around the time that they need more funding or whatever. It's like, what is it about this case? Why is it being kept alive so much? Whereas other little children, like Ben Needham or whatever, they just go into the ether, don't they? And like, nobody knows about, but not in the same way as Maddie McCann. It's just a trick stuff. I mean, the thing that we do know for certain is true is that Madeleine disappeared. She existed. She was left on her own in an apartment with two other children, John and Ali, while her parents went off having a great time with their friends. And they've never been held accountable for that. They've never been held accountable for neglect. But you can bet that was someone from a council estate, like, working class chavs or whatever, they would have been, they would have been demonised. The McCanns have never been demonised, have they? And also, what really irritates me about Kate and Jerry, they've never even acknowledged that what they did was wrong. They've never said we shouldn't have left the children on their own. They just double down on their justification for it all the time. Oh, well, it's just like being in your garden. Oh, it was just around the corner. Oh, they've never said, I'd be tortured. Let's suppose you did do it. I don't mean done something to Madeleine, but you'd gone out with your mates and left your kids in the apartment because you thought they'd be safe. Imagine you was abducted. You would be consumed, even though maybe you thought it was a good idea at the time. But, it turned out one of the children was abducted as a result. You'd never forgive yourself, would you? You just would never forgive yourself. But they've never, ever acknowledged that what they did was wrong. And that makes me angry, that reduces my sympathy for them. Because, of course, you're going to feel sympathy for someone who loses a child in whatever circumstances. And I do feel for them, even if they did something. As I say, presuming it was an accident and not deliberate, still a lot to live with, isn't it? And you can sort of see it, they had two other children. You can see that, I don't know what happened to Madeleine, but something strange happened. I don't think Christian Bruckner had anything to do with it, personally. But you know what? If he gets extradited and he goes to the Old Bailey and they start producing some evidence against him, well, fair enough. But I can't see that they can have any evidence, because if they had evidence, well, they had him in prison there in Germany, so why was he ever let out? Why was he not charged then? Because they haven't got the evidence. And sadly, if they haven't got the evidence to prove that he did it, how are they going to bring him to the Old Bailey and try and prove that he did it? And when they say extradite him, well, they've got to arrest him first, haven't they? Can't extradite somebody who's walking around free, surely. You know what? They've got to arrest him, charge him, surely, and extradite him. But of course, apparently they can't do it because of Brexit. So it's all just hot air, isn't it? Is it gaslighting? And then you think, well, why? Why are the public being gaslit about this case? If they are. It's really odd. It's the oddest thing, and it'll go on and on. So if nothing happens this time, which we won't, next year when it comes to 20 years, let's see what comes out then. There'll be another, I don't know, there'll be something else. Every year when it comes to the anniversary, there's something else that's talked about, but it never comes to anything, does it? So maybe one day it will, I don't know. So let me know as always what you think. I'm going to go now. And yeah, what do you think happened to Madeleine? Are the parents involved? Is Christian Bruckner the culprit? Do you think he'll be extradited and charged in the Old Bailey? Gosh, this is, 19 years down the line, and it's just all the same things that have been said. Nothing new, really, is it? So, anyway, I'll see you really soon in the next video. Thank you for caring about Madeleine. I mean, I think the public does care about Madeleine. Madeleine is not this little girl anymore, wherever she's either deceased, frozen in time, or she's living a life somewhere at the age of 23, kidnapped, trafficked. I don't believe any of that, to be honest. I think this little girl, in my opinion, I think this little girl is deceased. But I don't think we will ever find anything out about what really happened to her, which is sad, isn't it? But anyway, so I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, may your God always go with you. Thank you.